It's been a while since my last video, but I'm finally back with a new one. I began working on this painting after I finished the one before, called Flame, as I felt that it needed a kind of companion piece to tell a further story or narrative. So when I stumbled upon this 1942 photograph by Chinese-American artist Chao Chen-yang called Apprehension, I immediately knew I had to do something inspired by it. It shows the face of a young man being illuminated by an unknown source of light from below, and just the overall mood and suspense that this photograph conveys. It reminds me of a film still, kind of like a cinematic experience. There's a story happening there, and this is a direction that I'd like my future work to go into, where I can create narratives and stories that I would like to tell. So I use this image as a reference, all the while trying to keep the main elements of my style. And seeing this painting hanging next to a flame, I just can't help but feel that they really perfectly fit to each other, and they complete each other. My main point that I wanted to emphasize in this painting is the warm lighting on the subject's face and also his expression. Since painting descriptions can be a bit boring and redundant, I decided to write a story that kind of goes along with this piece instead. I feel like this will perhaps give you a better view of what I tried to convey with this piece. And this story bears the same title as the painting. It's called Come Closer. It was early in the evening, the last rays of the sun dissipating, and soon enough the sky had turned from a deep blue to an almost pitch black. The wanderer, unsure of his destination, had climbed up the mountain to find himself walking deeper and further into a deserted forest. Every day he had been coming to the same spot to admire the view from up there. It was the middle of the summer. The air was humid. Every night the wanderer would dream that he was being engulfed by a strange heat, gradually becoming unbearable, that left him burning up and crying out incessantly. The August nights were quiet. Only the chirps of the crickets and the wind blowing through the moving foliage disrupted the silence. Although at times the wanderer's pounding heart seemed to be the only sign of life in the vast landscape. Gazing at the moon, his contemplations were interrupted by a strange noise, a kind of crackling sound that seemed to come from a nearby bush. The leaves began to rustle, and the sharp scent began filling the surroundings. A sudden burst of light illuminated the forest for a split second and blew a strong current of hot air through the landscape. Wondering what could have caused such an occurrence, the wanderer began looking for the source of this light. Is someone out there? He thought to himself. A faint gleam appeared in the distance, undefinable at first. Walking through the forest, his feet on unstable ground, the only thing guiding him was the sharp golden outlines of the tree branches and their leaves, painted in this strange warm light. His eyes, which had grown used to the darkness, now felt a sting, and his throat began to choke up. It got warmer and warmer as he went further down until a bright shape appeared in the middle of the woodland. A long stem, blue at the bottom, slowly turning orange, curved, and flickering uncontrollably. It appeared like an illuminated flower bud. The shadows of the surrounding foliage began to dance to the rhythm of its movements. The flower bloomed. Sparks shot out of the inside, only to vanish as fast as they appeared. The lonely eyes of the wanderer soon became engulfed with the play of movements happening before him. He didn't seem afraid of this sudden apparition. The brightness turned the once beautiful leaves of the flowering peonies askew. Their now menacing silhouettes imprinted themselves onto his skin, almost concealing his body from its surroundings. Suddenly, the flame sprang higher, lighting up the foliage of the flowers, filling the forest with its presence. Never had he seen something like this. They say that every life is inevitably destined to die one day. The soul that moves through the bodies of humans can also be found in nature. As it too is given to loving, it hardly differs from human nature. The love that nourishes it first manifests in admiration and wonder. It then transforms into the pleasure of gaining the other's love, a feeling that momentarily illuminates the spirit. However, having this does not mean it will always be yours to keep. The last stage is the more difficult, since the fear of the love wilting away starts setting in. Having endured all throughout spring, it violently dies, before it is completely swallowed by the darkness again, where the choice is between having a fearsome pain on one side and perfect happiness within arm's reach on the other. The fire had coated the surrounding areas with countless little red glimmers that glistened in the August night. "Come closer." These words kept ringing in his head, and echoed to the wanderer's ears like the sound of a human voice calling for him. "Did you lure me here?" Who called me? He wondered. While he stood lost in contemplation of the flower, his hand slowly started to raise itself, moving closer and closer to the fire, before a sharp burning sensation pulled his finger back away. He murmured, "I cannot reach you." With each second passing, more and more fire petals began to swirl away into the air, disappearing into the darkness, into nothing. The air was thick with smoke spreading all over. With one last trembling movement, the stem of the flame collapsed, its light becoming weaker and weaker until a last gleam of deep red vanished without a trace. The scene was over. The light went out. As his eyes grew used to the dimness of the night again, he was feeling tired and feverish. His face was wet, but he couldn't tell whether it was with sweat or tears. Trembling all over, his legs could no longer bear the weight of his body, and the wanderer collapsed to the ground, the force of his pounding heart overcoming him. From the darkness there appeared only the beautiful colors of the night: white of the moon, black of the bushes, grey of the hazy air surrounding everything. The wanderer would never forget this encounter and would think, I'm glad to have met you. I dream of seeing you again, and I'll be lonely till then. Wondering if perhaps he had not even been awake at all. Dawn was breaking already. All was silent. Has it always been this way?